Hey everyone, welcome to Tent Talk, the Farmers Market podcast. This podcast is all about farmers markets. Whether you're a farmers market manager or a small farmer, food maker, or artisan selling at farmers markets, you have found just the right podcast.
I'm Kat Fields-White.
And I'm Bridget Myers. We're longtime farmers market managers, educators, and consultants. Get ready to catch up on all things farmers market pros with us. Welcome back to Tent Talk. This season, we'll be talking past tense and future tense. Get it? Tense? Where farmers markets have been and where they're headed. Upcoming episodes will focus on the tried and true basics that still work and new systems and insights to make your market or market business stronger and less stressful.
Today's episode of Tent Talk, the Farmers Market podcast, is supported by the National Farmers Market Survey. The deadline to take the survey has been extended to April 30th, Thursday, so you still have a few days to contribute to this important process. This year's survey is managed by Michigan State University Extension with funding from USDA's Agricultural Marketing Service and input from farmers market leaders. Results will be available this year. Fast turnaround to help you guide local policy, educate your audiences, and develop funding appeals. Click the Michigan State University logo on the resource page at farmersmarketpros.com and complete the survey this week.
All right, welcome back to Tent Talk, everyone. Happy spring, almost summer. We are talking in this newest season about past tense and future tense. That means making use of the resources and knowledge we and our colleagues have gained over time and discovering and sharing new tools and information to help our markets and businesses thrive and grow. Today, we're taking a quick look back at what we've learned at the 10th annual InTents National Farmers Market Conference last month. Last month.
Oh
my God, it feels like years
ago and also yesterday.
It does.
It does. So just briefly, if you're not up to date on the conference, we've been producing this conference for 10 years.
Can't believe it.
It's amazing. Yeah. And it's gotten better and better each year. We went into a new venue a couple of years ago, the beautiful Catamaran on the beach in Pacific Beach in San Diego. And we've attracted a great crowd. We went from live and in person to online only in 2021 for reasons that we all want to forget, and then remained hybrid since then.
Yep.
And it's continued to grow, and we've continued to hone our presentations and our speakers and expand the number of people involved. And it's just really been a lovely journey.
It really has. It's really just been this great idea that came to fruition, and we had to work out lots of kinks and, just kind of like those friends and family days. The first few years of the conference, I feel like we were just getting our bearings. And then it just really turned into this wonderful, beautiful thing. And it has been great to watch it kind of expand and grow and see repeat attendees, see new attendees every year. And it's just like going back to summer camp.
It is. It's great. See our buddies. We make new buddies.
Yep.
It's still the only national farmers market conference in the U.S. or Canada.
I can't believe no one's copied us.
Yeah.
What the heck?
Kind of expecting it. And somebody from another national organization said, they were talking to me at the conference last month. And they said, would you be offended if we did a national conference? I said, I'm only doing it because you're not doing it.
Could you please actually do it? That'd be great.
Hire me. I'll help you.
I'd love to just attend.
Right? Yeah. That would be even more fun.
Yeah.
But in fact, now that we've gone through 10 full years, we've learned a lot, we've changed things, we've evolved, we are actually taking 2027 off.
Yes.
If we were not, we would be right this very minute working on plans for 2027 because that's how this conference goes. It really takes a good 10 months each year to plan it.
Mm-hmm.
And because we started it with sort of short notice, we had this idea on a November day and we produced a conference the following beginning of March. We've never really sat down and taken the time to strategize, really analyze what works, what could be better, what the real aim is, who the audience exactly is, and set up systems where we have a better team to put it together. So we're taking this year off to do that.
Yep.
We won't be invisible. You'll see us at other places, but there will not be a conference, an InTents conference in 2027.
Yep. And I think it's great. We've just been chipping away at getting better and better at things over the many years. And so it'll be nice for us to just really analyze everything, figure out new strategies, new ideas, and just, take it in whatever direction we end up taking it in. But really give ourselves that break. I know I felt really good. And it helped me kind of enjoy the conference more this year because I wasn't oh, I got to make all these notes and like make sure we don't do this. Like in 12 months, it's going to come up. And it seems like a long time, a year, but just the conference planning just takes so much and like so much strategizing. So it was better, felt like a better conference for us at least, because we could kind of enjoy it and just, do the best job that we could do, which was, I feel like this was the best year yet, which was like also why, like, oh no, we're not doing it next year. It's the best.
I know, it was wild. It was like the best year yet. And maybe part of it being the best year yet was because we were a little bit more relaxed, thinking, oh, we're going to get a little break after this.
Yeah.
And it was weird because it was a year where there was a lot of things going on personally in my life and in some of our team's lives. And of course in the world and certainly in the US. And so we were stretched a little thin going into the conference, and I was concerned, but I do feel like it was the best year yet. And so at the same time as we were having that little sense of relief that we were going to take a break,
Hmm.
it's kind of like when you plan to cut your hair and then the day before you're going to go, it just looks so good.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you have a good hair day and you're like, oh, why did I decide to cut my hair? Why did we decide to take a year off? But I still think it's the right decision.
I'm glad that we kind of had to like talk each other down a couple of times. I was like, we could just do it next year. And you said, we could just do it next year. And we're like, no, we're not. We've made our decision. Let's move forward with that. But it was a really, really good time. It's an experience. It's like hard to explain the experience. It's like anything where it's just our community. Nobody understands this work besides us. And it's so great just to get in the space with everybody. And so it just felt really good this year.
I thought so too.
Yeah.
Saw so many friends. It's one of those conferences. You and I used to go to a conference, Bridget. You remember the World Domination Conference?
Yeah.
And we went to it every year, year after year after year. And this has been the same kind of conference. We see a lot of people, friendly faces that come back every year. And then, of course, we get this burst of new people, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So,
No, that's what's really great about it too. And just like anything, I think, and it's kind of like a market where it's like the same faces every market, and then you get those new folks that come in and join, and that's always really exciting. So that's just kind of how it felt. I met a lot of new people, and it was really nice to see old friends and to just deepen connections with folks. Just because every year I get to have like sit down and have good conversations with people, long talks about things, talk about like struggles that they're having or something new and exciting at their market. And it just kind of helps with that bond that we have with each other. And that was really, really lovely this year.
maybe next time we do it, we'll do it at a campground and we can have like bunk houses and we can camp together. That's a bonding thing. That sounds complicated.
That might be
nice, but yeah.
That's too much bonding for me. I like you guys, but I liked going back to my hotel room and shutting the door.
Just a thought. Just a thought.
Although I didn't, I will say I was like, oh yeah, I forgot. These are like 20-hour days because I was like, oh, I got a nice room at the Catamaran. It's beautiful. I was in there for like 5 minutes. I just came in and slept and then woke up and left. So, but that's just how it goes. Long days. I had a lot of fun, but yeah, it's a long 4 days for us for sure.
It is. Absolutely. So this year we had attendees from 31 states, which was less than we've had some years. We actually hit one year, I think right before we had to go to virtual, where I think we had 49 states at the conference, and we were all just kind of razzing South Dakota.
Yes. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's funny. But 31 states this year, and then numerous people from many of those states, 3 Canadian provinces, far fewer Canadians at the conference this year than usual. And, we know who to blame for that. But we had far more Californians than we've ever had. It was funny when we first started out, and you may experience this yourself, listeners, where you will tell your board something. It's a brilliant idea. It's a great way to change things. And they say, they kind of, and then a consultant comes in from somewhere else and tells them exactly the same thing. And they think it's the most brilliant thing they've ever heard. So I think the first couple of years, Californians kind of knew us personally. And they were like, well, these guys aren't experts. They're friends of ours. What do they know? So we didn't get a huge California turnout, ironically, the first couple of years of the conference. But they've come around. California, of course, keeps getting bigger in terms of numbers of markets and things. So we had a ton of Californians this year.
Yeah.
And in fact, the California group and also Wisconsin, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Georgia came en masse. There were a lot of people from each of those states, and they kind of put together their own informal state meetups within the conference, whether on a long break or at a lunch period or in the evening, after sessions were done, which I thought was cool. And one of the things I think we're going to discuss as we're strategizing is I can kind of see incorporating a day at the conference where regional groups can meet at InTents, the national conference, and get together and discuss their own regional issues, whether to complement maybe the regional conference that their own state has, or even more important, kind of provide an easy framework for states that don't have a state association of their own. That would be a great way to get people together, and they would get this bank of knowledge that we're putting together for everybody, but also have a chance to kind of get in their own little group and discuss state issues.
Yeah, I think that's such a benefit, and they don't have to like come up with their own place and logistics on their own. They could just gather at a space that's already there and just talk about issues that are relevant to their state or things that they want to do, either as an established group or, like you said, like maybe they're forming a new group or they just want to get together, even though there's not a formal group, but they can get together and sit down with their state. The California Alliance of Farmers Markets, we had like a little steering committee retreat get together, a couple hour meeting on Sunday, which was nice. um, I was like, I'm running this conference, so I'll pop in and out. But I ended up having the time to sit down, and it was like an invaluable conversation. We haven't really done a lot of that, and it was so great. We covered so many things. And then we had a little end of lunch break meeting where we invited anybody who was there from California to come and talk to us as the Alliance and just talk about some like hot button issues that are going on in the state right now. And it was a great turnout and had really great questions. And it was like we were just on a roll, and it was time to stop and go to session. And so it did feel like we needed more time and more organization around that. So I think that's a great idea to do it intense, like get these
Yeah,
dates
just
together.
build in a little half-day thing where they can hold their own sort of regional conference, and it would save them investing in a regional conference, or it would add to the conference that they do.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I actually wrote a piece for our Farmers Market Forum newsletter a few months before the conference about how managing a farmers market and managing a conference have a lot of similarities. And my favorite part of both is curating. I love balancing our markets with the very best variety of farmers and vendors. And I love creating a conference schedule that balances what experienced market managers need, what association leaders need to hear, and what brand new market managers need to learn. And that's complicated, especially as the conference has gotten older. We've gotten more and more people and they've been at various stages of their professional journey. So, and then of course we do the 1 day track for farmers and vendors, which we had early on, and then we kind of dropped for a while, and then we brought it back. We may look at separating the farmer and vendor piece out into its own little conference, maybe some 1 day conferences that pop up in different areas of the country.
Yeah, I mean, the farmers and vendors, I know we used to like teach Vendor 101, and then folks would stay for the conference, and we tried to make presentations a little bit like relevant to both types of groups. And then it wasn't working as well, or we just weren't really like as focused on that. Like you and I were honing in on really the operations, presentations and things. So that kind of fell off. But then we did bring them back a couple years ago. And this year, I feel like last year we got a great turnout. And this year we got a really great turnout because they heard about last year
Right.
and had presenters talking about things that are like just relevant to vendors. And the vendors just, they got such great value out of that. We got a few that traveled here for that, which was amazing. And then it was a lot of like local folks, just Southern California folks. And so it was like a lot of my vendors came from my markets and from your markets. And it was just really nice for them to say, oh, like there's not a space for us anywhere. Cause again, there's not like a conference for farmers market vendors,
There
which
is not.
hello, someone should do a full conference just for that. But they were so grateful for that. And they're still talking about it. Just this past Saturday, I talked to folks that are like, oh my gosh, we like love Sarah Delavan. They were, hooking up with her and still talking to her and working with her program and everything. And just really grateful for that, already making changes in their booth based on that. Very proud of themselves. Shout out to my kids, the pickle boys.
Right.
They call me mom, so it's okay if I call them that. But I mean, just like these little changes that they learned how to do that are really improving their business at the market. And for market managers, it's such a benefit for our vendors to learn that stuff because it's like job security for us. Because the more vendors that continue to be successful as vendors, the more markets can continue to be successful. If all of our vendors are just failing out of business, that's not helping us at all. So it's just really nice that we kind of synced those programs up. And then they were really happy to be at like a reception on Monday and just mingle around with market managers and get to talk to other folks. So yeah, it was really great. It's a really good mix. I feel like we finally dialed it in and got that part right.
Yeah. I think the trick though is I think most farmers and vendors are not going to travel a great distance across the country to go to that. And if I think back, I think the original conference, one of the things that we wanted to do was I was coming out of going to small farm conferences where they always talked about farming, which is an obvious thing to talk about at a small farm conference, but I felt like they weren't teaching market farmers to sell, and that nobody was talking to market vendors. And so the very first InTents conference part of the goal was to extend past Vendor 101 to teach existing vendors and farmers more.
Yep.
But as it evolved, it turned out that the market managers were in a better position to travel and to spend 3 or 4 days in sessions and things. And so we are getting a good turnout now from pretty local and maybe, a little bit from Arizona and some neighboring states, vendors and farmers. But I think that maybe needs to be transformed into its own event that happens regionally.
Yep, travels around. So
Yeah.
like we're developing curriculum for that and logistics kind of, and then the vendors in each area can really benefit from
Right.
that. And the operators that are familiar with InTents and anyone who's, listening now or just familiar with Farmers Market Pros, I think those operators would really champion a program like that because they would want their vendors in their area to be attending things like that because there's just nothing for them.
I see partnerships in our future.
Yes,
Yeah.
for sure, for sure.
As that one evolves.
Yeah.
So we had a good mix there. So one of the things that we've always done, and it's like starting a farmer's market in my neighborhood because I want fresh food in my neighborhood.
Mhm.
We've always kind of centered the sessions on the main stage at Intense because I get so frustrated when I go to another conference and there's 5 different tracks. And at any one time, there's 5 different sessions going on, and I really want to be in 3 of them. And there's no way to do it. So we've always really centered it on keeping people in one room. But I think going forward, that one of the things that we might need to do because our attendees have kind of grown up with us, and some of them are very experienced now. So if we do kind of toolkit sessions that new managers really need to know, they feel like they're kind of bored. Although some of that stuff, I find I get refreshed information from those kind of sessions, even as a market manager that's been in this for a very long time. But still, I think they need kind of a different level of things. So one of the things I think we might do going forward is create more separate tracks. We'll have certain things that happen in one room so that we're all together. But I think a lot of the conference time, maybe up to half, will be used to split out into separate tracks. How do you feel about that? I know you go to the same kind of conferences, and I know you have the same kind of frustration sometimes if we're at Main Street or, some other conference where it's very separated out tracks. What do you think about whether it's better to keep everybody in one room or to spread out into different sessions?
I think I have mixed feelings about it, but when it comes to this, I was thinking about that, especially this last year at the conference, last month, so recently. I'm like, when was that? And the conversations that I was having, like outside of sessions, just when I was talking to folks, like on breaks and at the social events and things like that, I found myself wanting to talk to folks who had kind of the same level of markets as I did, like just bigger kind of cornerstone markets, dealing with those kind of challenges or what are things that they do at their market that could help me. So like learning from folks that were just at the same level was very helpful to me. And I love it talking to vendor or market managers that are just starting out and have smaller markets or really rural markets because I'm just interested in all of that. But I think when it comes to like conference material, I'm more interested in learning about stuff that's really relevant to me. So I do think I would say like 2 tracks and not split it into like 5 different rooms where you
Sure.
get to decide on stuff because Main Street's notorious for that. And they're all good and I want to go to all of them, but they bring, a million people there. But yeah, I do think we might want to look at adjusting some of that. So there's like maybe 2 tracks and you can just pick whatever room. I think we did split up for something and we were like, if
We
this is,
split up for a number of
Yeah.
things. I mean, we have in the last few years done separate tracks just on Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah.
We've had 2 or 3 things going in different rooms.
Yes. And so that's always helpful because it's like, look, even if you are a smaller market, you can go to this session for bigger markets if like you're interested in learning about that. We're not going to like bounce you out of anything.
Yeah, you definitely get to self-select
Yeah.
whatever way we go.
Exactly. So people can make their own choices on that. But yes, I do agree. We probably need to do a little divvying up of material. A lot of our sessions were really relevant to everybody.
Yeah,
I
you can
think.
still do a lot on the main stage. I think a lot of the marketing material is going to apply no matter what stage you're at. There's various things. And some of the just big picture ideas stuff, I think was relevant to everybody in the room. But then some of the more nuts and bolts stuff, maybe how you manage your applications or how you do maps and that kind of thing. There's a basic level and then there's a more complicated level. And certainly, I think fundraising can be something that you've got to approach one way really early on, or if you're a really small market, and a different way if you've got a really big urban market that's well established.
Exactly. Yeah. And just like vendor recruiting and stuff, like that's not relevant to markets that have a wait list with the 1,000 people on it. So but it's very relevant to newer markets, to markets that are just in their first few years of starting out, or some changes have been made, or you had to move locations. Like that could apply to a lot of different groups of operators. And so we could just kind of split those tracks up with what we know about what's relevant to folks.
Yeah, I
Yep.
think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
This year we did have a good mix. We had some separated out sessions, and we also had some really good sessions in the big room where the speakers engaged the audience and let people work with the folks seated around them and then get involved in coming back with new ideas and information based on a certain topic trigger, that kind of thing. Get involved in producing content in real time. We had some really good sessions that operated that way. And so I think, and again, that's something that we're going to evaluate for when we're looking at session proposals and things in the future, is how we have more sessions that are more active. We've got such a powerful audience. We've always said you're going to learn from the people on the stage, but you're really going to learn from the people seated on either side of you. And I think we need to take better advantage of that and provide more opportunities for the audience to jump in and really create content.
Attendees really seem to like that
They
when
do.
they got to talk to their neighbor and then come back and report things and, pulled up on stage and kind of report ideas that came back. I know I learned a lot from folks that just brainstorm amongst themselves and then got up and shared that just because it was more kind of perspective for everybody. So that was helpful. So yeah, more of that. I think people like that a lot. So yeah,
Yep.
nailed it. Because sometimes we've done that and it's been a hot mess. I
Yeah,
must
that's
say,
true.
like 7 or 8 years ago, we're like, oh, break into groups. And it was just like
Oh
so
my God.
chaotic.
And actually, a lot of people liked that session. I remember that. What we did is I think we had 5 speakers give short presentations, like
Yeah.
super short, maybe 10, 12 minutes. And then each of those speakers had a table of people. So you could choose which speaker you wanted to sit with, and you went and sat with them and you dug deeper into that topic. But it was all in one big room. And there were 5 groups
Because
and
we're
a
dumb.
lot of people talking at one time. Oh my goodness. Yes.
That
It
was
was
difficult.
chaotic.
Yeah, it's
People
chaotic.
mentioned liking those conversations, but also really not being able to hear most of them. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Lessons learned.
lessons learned
Okay.
for sure. So some of the favorite sessions this year, since we're kind of recapping this year's conference, I think it's interesting to look at the survey. So understanding that slightly less than 25% of attendees actually responded to the survey.
Of course.
Yeah, so we don't necessarily know what the other 75% think, but
Mhm.
based on that's a big enough number to maybe be able to get a decent kind of average. What did people think about what?
Yep.
So these were the top 5 sessions that we had based on this survey. Kelly Burrell on the she's from Project for Public Spaces in New York, and she did a big presentation on the Grow New York City study that they did. Grow NYC runs, oh gosh, I think it's 17 or 18 markets, some really big urban markets like Union Square, and then some small neighborhood markets, super, super small neighborhood markets that have just exactly what that little neighborhood needs. So it was, even though it's Grow NYC and they've got some big markets, it's still pretty representative because they've got a lot of different kinds of markets. So Project for Public Spaces had done a big study with them, and they came up with a lot of conclusions that would apply to all markets about this is what your customers want. This is what engages them. This is what doesn't engage them, that kind of things. This is what the farmers are getting out of your markets, and this is what they're not getting out of markets, and they'd like to. So that was a really good overview, and that actually got the highest rating in the survey in terms of the number of people that said this was my favorite session.
Oh, great.
Yeah. And then the next one was Jamie Haji from Ohio. She's with the Ohio Farmers Market Network, and she did a session on celebrating volunteers. And it was an amazing session. She has grown markets that have had the same volunteers for 10 or 15 years and have used volunteers for all kinds of things. And it's funny because Jamie has been proposing doing this session for many years. And I'm always wary about it because I've had, my attitude, or the official Farmers Market Pros attitude, is that we should be careful with labor laws and not be using volunteers for things that should be paid positions. But many markets that are of a certain size, really, this is the only way they can provide anything beyond the basics. So you may be paying a manager and maybe a manager's assistant, but if you want to do a children's program, or if you want to be able to process SNAP and EBT, you're going to need volunteers. And she gave us really good insights on the ways to compensate volunteers, the ways to recruit them, the ways to retain them, the ways to manage them so that they feel that the time they're donating is valuable, and the ways to evaluate them if you've got a volunteer that maybe isn't fitting into your culture.
Yeah.
So that was a really interesting session. People loved that. I think you even said, we've never really used volunteers at our market, but I think you came out of that session saying you could see where maybe you could add some programming with a volunteer.
Yeah, exactly. So again, like wouldn't think it'd be relevant to me just because I've never used volunteers, but it's like, oh, okay, this could be for this little program or little side, event that's happening or for a part of the year or something like that. So that does end up being relevant for folks who maybe have never thought about having volunteers.
Yeah.
Yep.
So people loved that one.
Mhm.
Jamie, by the way, has just been elected the new board president of Farmers Market Coalition. So
Whoop.
we're very excited about that because I've worked with Jamie a lot in the past, and she's really efficient and an effective leader. And I think that she's going to be good for that group as it's gone through some transitions the last couple of years, and it's moving forward into a new era.
Yeah.
Mike Lee on what do farmers market shoppers want?
I really liked that session.
I loved that session.
He was so interesting to listen to, and it just got my brain like thinking about lots of things. Yeah, he was great.
Yeah,
I really liked that.
that was really interesting. I know
Mhm.
him from another life, another event, actually another conference that I used to go to. He's based in Detroit.
Mhm.
Is in New York a lot, but he's got a book called Mies, The Future of Food. He's got an amazing Substack, so if you want to follow him, he's got great ideas. But he had one of the two one-liners that I heard people quoting over and over and over again, both throughout the conference after his session and in later conversations in the last few weeks. I've been talking to somebody and they're like, do you remember what Mike Lee said? And what he said was, even our audience, and of course, he's speaking to mostly farmers market managers, we're surrounded by amazing food and we really understand the food system and we know what it means to source locally in terms of how it supports farmers and regeneration and what effect it has on the climate. And he said, and even us, I just want you to think about the last time you had an incredible meal and you sat back and you patted your stomach and said, "Oh boy, that was sustainable." You know, even we don't do that. We say that was delicious.
Yep.
And so his point was, the gateway to get people to the market and keep them at the market and keep them shopping at the market is to let them know how delicious fresh local food is. And then you can gradually teach them the sustainability and the regeneration and the supporting farmers financially.
Just really great, like deep thoughts for us to think about and use in our marketing and in our kind of orientation at our markets.
Yeah,
Yeah, he was great.
it was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like those big picture speakers. And we did
Mhm.
get a lot of comments back on the survey and on our comment cards that they liked the blend of really nuts and bolts thing like the volunteer session, but also hearing from people like Mike and from David Sachs, who talked about the future of his analog, hearing some of that big picture philosophical stuff, they
Yep.
also really enjoyed because they're just not hearing that anywhere else.
For sure. And I think that's a good mix. And I know you and I really like that when we go to conferences. And we go to a ton of conferences. I've been to all types of conferences. And that's my preference, is to have some big picture stuff that really gets you thinking about things, maybe abstract ideas, things you've like thinking about things in ways you've never thought before. And then also like some actual tools, like checkbox tools, nuts and bolts, things that you can really start grinding away at right away. So I like the mix.
Yeah.
That really, I mean, you schedule and do all the speaker onboarding and everything, and it's all your brainchild. So I just appreciate that as when I'm sitting in the room, I feel like an attendee. And so it's nice. Yeah, it's nice for me to learn that.
That's my favorite part too.
Yeah.
So again, anybody out there that wants to produce a great conference and has some grant money or something and wants to hire me just to curate speakers, give me a shout.
I know your expertise.
We could evolve.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then the next one in this list of top 5 that was very popular was real life,
Mhm.
which was on social media and how you actually make a reel and what kind of things are most valuable for you in terms of social media for your markets. So we had Larry from the Newhall Farmers Market and Caitlin from your market,
Mhm.
and then Christy Campley from Pennsylvania. So we had kind of a variety of viewpoints. I did talk to a couple of people afterwards who said, I have opinions. I'm not sure that this is the most effective. And I said, well, that's why we gave you 3 opinions. And I'm sure that there's another 120 opinions in this room. And there's a lot of things you can do with social media and marketing. And let's think about all of them.
And I liked that mix of those 3 because they all approach the social media so differently.
Very different.
Very differently. And they all do a very good job that gets great response. I mean, doing a great job, but also the most important part is, okay, is it working for you? Are you getting, interaction with your customers online? And all 3 of them do. And they just take very wildly different approaches to it. So it was great to hear from all of them.
Yeah.
Even Caitlin, she does my social media. And I was like, oh, this is like
That's why you do that.
Yeah, exactly. Because I have a long leash with her. I just go do whatever you think is cool. But it's nice to hear her. She really thinks really deep about it. And so does Larry and so does Christy. And they know their market so well. And they make that, they just really make this huge effort to like have this voice of their market online, which is so important right now. And I know a lot of people walked out of that session with a lot of ideas
Yeah.
and thinking about what is their market voice and what do they want to do with their social media. So that was a great session.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a really good one.
Hmm.
And then the last one that was in our top five, and then we had some that were really close to the top five. So
Yeah.
we'll talk about a couple, like what our personal favorites are, et cetera. But
Hmm.
the Taste It tent was hugely popular. They not only did the presentation on stage, but they set up a Taste It tent in the resource lounge where our exhibitors are and where we eat and where we have the merch shop.
Yeah.
And showed everybody how to do the Taste It tent throughout the 3 days that we were there. So that was really cool. There are two women out of Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And did you talk to them at the table?
I didn't talk. I talked to them a little bit, and I was in and out of their session because I was like talking to the caterers for the whatever we had going on. But yeah, so I didn't talk to them much though.
So it's almost like a chef's demo, but it's not chefs, it's market people.
Yeah.
And they're taking one ingredient each week and they're doing demos and they have just a dedicated tent where they have this ingredient and somebody is standing there throughout the market talking to shoppers about this is they're physically showing them this is how you peel kohlrabi if you want it peeled, and this is how you cook kohlrabi, and here are 4 recipe cards for what you can make with this. And they do a different ingredient each week of the market season, and it's hugely effective. They've tracked it, and the sales for that ingredient on that day and following weeks will skyrocket. So
Absolutely brilliant. And just, of course it does, because I think that's just all market managers can kind of like feel the same way about this is like shoppers come to the market and they don't know about these things that are being grown. They've never seen it before, maybe because it's not going to grocery stores. And they just have a lot of questions about it. And to ask for a farmer to answer everybody's individual question over and over and over again while they're also trying to sell is difficult, not always feasible. But having a tent where they're just talking about that ingredient, they're just talking about prep methods and how to cook it. It's just so
it's
smart.
less intimidating for shoppers because they don't have to admit that they don't know what to do with it.
Yeah,
they just walk up to the Taste It tent and everybody's learning at the same time. They
Exactly.
don't have to ask the farmer and admit that they don't know what that is.
I love that kohlrabi is always just like what everyone says when we're like, we don't know what this is or how to taste. I still don't know how to cook it, but
I like it raw.
Okay.
Yeah. And you can mash it. You can cook it and mash it like potatoes.
Do you want to do a Taste It tent at my market?
I should do a Taste It tent at your market.
That's what we should do when we retire. We should just do Taste It tents around other people's markets. It'd be so fun. I would chop everyone's vegetables because I want that at my market.
We do think that there should be a veggie butcher at every market that people can bring their produce to after they've bought it, and that person will prep it for them.
Please.
You'd buy it.
I would buy it in a heartbeat.
One of the others that didn't come in on the top 5, but it gave us the second most repeated phrase that I heard at the conference after her presentation and in weeks following is Sadrina Jalal brought a panel. Georgia Grown helped them all get here. It was the South Has Something to Say was their sort of theme. And one of the women on that panel, Nancy, who runs the Peachtree Farmers Market in Atlanta, which is a big market there, was talking about explaining rules and boundaries and expectations to your vendors, and I think a little bit to your shoppers because they delved in a little bit to conflict management and things at the market. But what she boiled that down to was clear is kind.
Mm-hmm.
And we heard that repeated over and over. We're going to make a t-shirt. Is that if you are very clear in your expectations and what you expect people to experience at the market and how you expect them to act and what will benefit them the most by setting up on time and breaking down on time and all those things, that they will have a better experience and so will you. And that there's a kindness in providing clarity so that you're not catching people doing it wrong. You're helping them know from the beginning how to do it right.
I have really taken that to heart and have used that just in my own brain. I've said it out loud. I've talked to my staff, and just when I'm adjusting things on my application or my vendor advisories or anything or responses to people, I've kind of kept that in mind. And it's just really something great to remember as a farmer's market operator, because sometimes I'm like, I don't want to explain this, or I just have thoughts about why do I need to say this? But it's not about that. It's about that clarity will help whoever you're speaking to. And then it also helps you. And then that makes for a better relationship between whoever I'm talking to. And it is really the kind thing to do. So
yeah.
I loved that
one.
I loved it too.
What was your personal favorite session, do you think?
Well, yeah. So I was thinking about this, and just as I'm like the conference fire putter outer. That's my role at the conference. And so I'm very in and out of the room a lot. So I try to sneak in there and watch as many sessions as I can, but I'm like answering questions and talking to the hotel management and things like that. So I didn't sit and watch too many like start to finish, but I did make sure that I was in the room when Jasmine and Liz were talking about vendor residencies.
Yeah, that
They're
was cool.
yeah, they're from Food Access LA, and knew they were coming to speak about that, and that's something that I have an idea to do at my market, and so it's just very relevant. And they did a great job with their presentation. I even asked a couple questions, and they were really thorough about that program that they have at the Hollywood market. So that I really, really liked that one. I was going to say Mike Lee too. His session was really great. What were some that stood out for you?
I loved Mike Lee's session, of
Hmm.
course. That session was sort of an off the wall idea that I don't think most people would have thought of having,
Yeah.
but I knew him from various other places and I follow his Substack and I just think he's so smart about these things that I was glad I was able to put that together. And I didn't know exactly what he'd say because he doesn't necessarily speak to the farmers market sector. He speaks to people all over food systems. Um, and I thought he did a really good job of personalizing it for our audience. And
Yes.
yeah,
That's what it was, is that because sometimes we've had speakers that are like just in the food space and they start talking about food, which is, of course, interesting to all of us, but the relevance is missing, or there's just not something that really connects to the markets. But he was really talking about like a general, just food in general, like thinking about food, but then dialed it back
right.
to markets and to what we do in the food space. So it was just really nice he connected those things, and I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, I thought so too. So I really loved the burnout brainstorm session on Monday afternoon. So since Monday is the track where we have farmers and vendors, they were at our very first session in the morning, our playtime with Gary Ware, and then they were at this last session. So there were, probably close to 300 people in the room. But Sarah Marshall, who's a returning speaker, she's come back to us a number of times from Portland, Oregon, and then Christine Farron from Foodwise, who runs the Ferry Building Farmers Market in San Francisco, did a session together to both market managers and farmers and vendors about dealing with burnout, what causes burnout, what your best techniques are to fight that. And it came out of a conversation that you and I had had with somebody. Somebody reached out to us months before the conference and said, "Can we have a session?" And everybody's having a bad day. And she said, "Can we have a session where we just all sit together and cry?" And then circumstantially, I got an email from Christine the next day that said, "We'd like to talk about burnout because we're all in major burnout here. And we'd like to talk about, is there anything we can do besides just sit together and cry?" And I said, "Oh, funny you should say that. We were just having that conversation."
This is a sign.
Yeah. And then she got really busy and she didn't submit a proposal. And I finally hunted her down and said, I really think we need to do this because then in the meantime, things had gotten more stressful in the country and there was more confrontation at the markets and things. And I felt like a lot of people were feeling that. And that was a really good session because they managed to take that super big room full of people and not only do provide their views of what they do to ease burnout and to cope with things, but kind of separate people into little groups and then really efficiently record the responses and put together sort of a great package of notes for what kind of things you can expect to cause you stress and what kind of things you can do to avoid those situations. And once you're in them and you're just burned out, what you can do to ease that pain.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really brilliant session that engaged the whole audience as well.
Yeah, a lot of people said that that was great, and they got some really like firm tools to use in their daily life and like take back to their market. I need to watch that session actually because
Yeah.
I wasn't there. I was setting up the reception,
Yeah.
but I was getting burnt out and I missed the
Right.
burnout section.
And that's how these things go.
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, but I have really great feedback on that as well, and they're both so wonderful. It was nice to have Sarah back. I think she's been with us since the very first year.
Yeah, I think she's only missed like one conference.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that was awesome.
She's
Yeah,
always back with one session or another. And in fact, she has actually for the last 2 years been the MC in the farmers and vendors room because she
yeah,
has a hot sauce business in Portland. And
yeah,
so she relates, but she's also, really good at a lot of different things. She has a podcast herself and she does a lot of incubation with new businesses and things. So
yeah.
she's a great MC over there. Some of the sessions in there that were people's favorites were Kelly McManus's session on design, display, sell. That it was a lot of the science about what makes customers stop and how to fix your booth display to create more sales. I think people got a lot out of that. William Davenport gave some good sessions in there. And then Sarah Delavan was hugely popular with her cash flow, profit, and what you can expect and how you can track what you're making in terms of actual margin from different outlets. So say you're in farmers markets, but you're also doing online sales or you're also in local retail stores, it's real easy to get confused about volume versus profit in
Hmm.
that situation. And she has some terrific systems to fix that. And people really liked that session.
I'm so glad that a few of like some key vendors of mine from my market came and were in that session because I know as a lot of us do as market operators, we talk to our vendors and they, are in this like phase of like, should I scale up? Should I go retail? Should I open up a brick and mortar? Should I sell online? And then I'm keeping the farmer's market and all these different avenues. And it's like, I'm always just like, you have to be tracking every cent and like, how much does it cost you to make it? How much it costs you when you sell it over here, sell it over here. So it's just, I mean, I am like always trying to talk to them about that, but I'm not like an expert in that field. So it's so nice to like have them sit in a session with an expert.
Yeah.
And Sarah is so amazing in that at that. And I know a lot of them really benefited from that and signed up for her program and things. But yeah, just and they're already implementing things like raising their prices of their product because they were selling it for less than what it took to make it and not realizing it,
Yeah.
which I feel like is kind of common amongst vendors. They just don't think it all the way through. And even with markets, you're operating a market and you're bringing in less than it's costing you to operate it.
Yeah.
So I really love those conversations when we talk about that stuff because it gets people to fix those problems.
Yeah. And she's the Good Food CFO is what she goes by. And she's got a new software program. And she's actually one of our resource partners this year. So we'll be talking to her more as we go along. It's really, really important. We've seen so many people with amazing products succeed themselves out of business. They get busier and busier, and people are enthusiastic and they get pulled into, they get stars in their eyes and get pulled into other outlets for selling without realizing the costs associated with selling in that environment or that environment. So
it's one of the
really
saddest parts of my job is
definitely
watching when people are doing that. So yeah, I'm
great to have
really,
her.
really grateful for her.
And then, of course, always popular last few years as we've done it. And this year, I think we did a really nice job with it. The Hot Topics and Bright Ideas session, which are just like 4 big roundtables that go on. Wisely enough, we've understood now that you want to put those in separate rooms.
We're so smart. And now we have more space.
And now we have more
like
space.
more, private space at the new locations. That was great.
So that worked really well. We had a variety of facilitators from the group that popped in and volunteered. And then Natalie Lebejoff, who is from the Orange County Farm Habit Markets, she sort of organized that. And she has a big dream of keeping things going, keeping the conversation going after InTents. So she and I have been working together and we'll be getting an email out and it'll be out on social soon where you can sign up. If you attended the conference and were in one of those groups, you'll have the opportunity to do monthly calls and homework and report back and kind of keep going with some of those ideas. I think the first 2 topics she's tackling is we're going to call it the intense focus groups because, we like those puns. And so Natalie's going to be running a call having to do with financial stimulation. So not fundraising as much as ways to increase sales at your market. And then the other one I think they're going to tackle first is the safety one. So kind of conflict management and how to make a safer, more secure environment for everybody in the market.
So relevant for everybody. Love that. Natalie's awesome too.
Yep. So that's going to keep going. So that was this year's conference in a nutshell.
It was great.
A lot of time on the beach.
My other favorite parts were all the social times that we had together. Mostly because I didn't have to be like doing any work, so I could really enjoy it.
Once you get off.
But the reception we had on Monday night at the Catamaran, and then the Tuesday PB Market was a blast. It was beautiful weather, kind of made up for 2025 when it was pouring rain, which was also, I feel like, very important that we as market managers went out there in the rain and saw a market operating in pouring rain. And I thought that was helpful, but it's a lot more fun when it's beautiful and everyone had a great time there. And Shore Club, of course, is always so lovely. I know it's like a down and dirty bar. I like it. I don't know if it's everyone's favorite thing, but that was a lot of fun. And I got to really talk to some new folks that had just been there, or like there was our first year there and they were really excited. These 2 women, they're from Jersey. They were lovely. And then they're like, we can't wait. Yeah, next year we're going to do this. And like next year we're going to come. And I had to like break it to them because they hadn't realized that we weren't doing it in 2027. And they were like devastated. But they were so funny. We had a good talks and just catching up with friends, meeting new people. I really like that social time. It's a little unstructured. So it
was fun. Closing party. We added a closing party.
The closing party was so fun.
But fun on the beach.
Yeah, that was a nice way to just kind of wrap things up. And there was a lot of people, usually like the end of the last day, people stay for this session and then they zoom out of there. But Folks were kind of like making a week of it. So I think they were kind of sticking around and it was nice to have a good group at the end.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. Celebrate our 10-year anniversary,
That's right.
which was lovely. And Candrid came and played his beautiful music, which was a delight.
He's a good guy.
Ah, love him.
Started as a musician at the market, then
Hmm.
became a food vendor. Now he's got his own little brick and mortar.
And he's having a baby. You didn't know that?
No,
Oh, they posted it, so I
that's
can say
exciting.
it.
Okay.
Yes.
That's
Having a
exciting.
baby, we're all very excited
Oh,
because he's the sweetest, sweetest human.
we love the market babies.
Yep.
So there are, we're not just going to disappear in 2027. There will be ways that we can still be connecting. We'll be popping up at other conferences as we always do, and maybe a little bit more than we usually have. I think we're going to produce some online webinars. We're
Yep.
going to ramp up our online live call schedule. So that'll be coming up.
Those are helpful. Those are helpful because it's just like, every time I get off one of those calls, I'm like, whew, like I needed that. Just needed to talk, needed to hear about something new or talk about something that's affecting me in my market. But you don't have to make a whole, travel schedule around
Yeah,
it. So
for
it's
sure.
nice. Mhm.
Not quite as fun as seeing people,
For sure.
and give them a hug,
Yeah.
but really handy to be on we do live calls that are not just presentations. It's everybody gets a chance to talk and you're usually with your peers in terms of market size and that kind of thing. And yes, people have loved those. We'll keep doing those.
Yep.
We might do some one-day pop-ups, especially for farmers and vendors in various cities. We're just still thinking through that, so we'll see what happens. Our newsletter has moved over to Farmers Market Forum on Substack, and we would love for you to come subscribe at farmersmarketforum.com. We're going to be doing a lot more there this year now that we've gotten through the conference. And then let's talk for a minute about ways. What are our options and what are some of the things we're considering for coming back in 2028? I will say that the vast majority of folks who answered the survey, and again, that's a very slanted group. They've been here sometimes multiple times. It wasn't everybody that was here. It would be great to hear how do we do a survey to folks who don't come to the conference. That's what we need to talk about where they'd like to see it happen. But the vast majority, I mean, the huge majority, like 89% of people said, I said, when we come back in 2028, where would you like to see the conference? And, one of the answers was in sunny San Diego, of course, and one was another major city, somewhere on the East Coast, etc. And almost everybody said in San Diego. And then the few people who didn't say in San Diego said, well, it'd be cool to have it in such and such place, but I'd definitely come to San Diego. So
Like, fine, we'll just stay here.
so we might just stay here.
Yeah.
But yeah, if anybody's out there who didn't come to the conference and wants to share an opinion on where they think the conference would be good to have,
Yeah.
by all means, drop us a line or message us on Instagram.
Yeah, I will say it's nice to just be in a delightful place like this because we've been to conferences where, we went to a conference in Boston. No one was like hanging out after the conference, walking around because it was like 0 degrees. So I do get it that it adds something to the conference when it's beautiful outside and there's a lot to do and you can go on the path by the bay and people can bring their families that are like staying down the street and make like a vacation out of it or something. So, there is something to be said, not just because we live here and we love this place, but because it's a lovely place to come and be. And it just kind of leads to a more enjoyable experience. So
Right.
keeping that in mind.
Yeah. I think our next iteration is going to have a bigger planning group. And
Yeah.
so I've had some conversations with
Please.
Please. We are a small, nay, a tiny but mighty team. Very few people involved in the planning on this thing.
Yes.
And although the execution, we've developed a good team of folks. We had a group from Ohio that helped us this year. Shout out to Penny.
Mhm.
And we've had
Yeah.
Tamara from Astoria, Oregon, and we've had some
Amanda.
there.
Yeah.
Amanda. But
Mhm.
we need a bigger planning group from the start.
Yep.
Because we get behind, we do
Mm-hmm.
things like put out the schedule much later than we should just because I only have so much time in a day.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're going to maybe look at some committees, committee chairs, and somebody that the committee chairs report to, who's a coordinator that then comes back to our core group and does it. We've got some folks in mind. Christy, are you listening?
Calling Christy.
Calling Christy.
Attention. Maybe people who are used to working in committees and groups and things like that, which is not us. I will say, I was like, why can't we like get a group together? And it's really because as market operators, we are very like sole operators. We have small teams that help us. And we're doing it every week, so it doesn't seem like this big like thing with a bunch of logistics. But I will say I ran a huge annual event every year for 7 years, and I had a huge committee. It was like for a school, so it was all volunteer committee, but we had committees, we had subcommittees, we had people doing this, people doing that. And it took so many working hands to work through all of those logistics of that annual event. Like I maybe could have done it myself, but I would have been kind of stressed and getting stuff out late the way that we are a little bit with the conference. So I think it's nice to think of the conference as like this annual event, which it is, and not as just like a, oh, we can do this in our sleep farmers market. So just kind of changing our thinking about that and bringing in people that are really experts in that field. Because Christy, for instance, she runs a lot of annual events and she runs her market like that, where she has committees and she has a lot of folks helping out. And so bringing in people who are better at that than us, I think would be helpful because it's just not really our mindset when we do things like that. So,
I think so too.
yeah.
It'd be awesome.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be quite so tired. I'd be more eager to do it in the next year.
And really, I mean, it's like you could do the things that I mean, delegate all but the genius. It's like you are so good at dialing in those speakers and at like really like the vibes. Like you create this like, we're going to do this at this time and we're going to bring this person in to like do a song and we're going to have the social event here with this. And so that kind of is your wheelhouse where you're setting up the tone and like the atmosphere, but you don't need to be like, how many coffee cups are we going to have? Or like, where does this table go?
Well,
So
actually, what I'm not always good at because I'm trying to do too many things is letting the speakers know my great vision for them.
yeah, exactly.
Well enough in advance.
Yeah.
So, a speaker liaison committee that would help the speakers get all the tools they need, not at the last minute,
Yeah.
would be good.
Yeah.
Because we do have brilliant speakers and they need more support, honestly, than I give them.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that we could do. Like we could just let others come in and do, and maybe they're very good at that. They're experts at those kind of things, those logistics, and then we could do what we're good at.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that would also help if we relocate for any reason, if we decide to do it in a different city, because part of the reason we're in San Diego is that we have a team here.
Yeah.
So I know people that can stand at my registration desk because they stand at my info booth.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
If we were going to ever relocate out of San Diego, we would definitely need kind of a larger resource group.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. We know what we need.
That's right.
Gotta get it. Yeah, and then just more separate tracks because audience is varied and because so many people come every year.
Yeah,
so
we'll talk
just,
about that.
Yeah, just dividing stuff up. And then kind of thinking about whether hybrid and virtual is important. I know we have a lot of people that tune in online, but just kind of thinking what kind of experience are we creating and do we want to continue with that or kind of do something all online, do something all in person and what does that look like? Just because the AV and all that gets that technical stuff kind of it just ends up kind of sucking up a lot of time that we could
And
be
money.
and money, so much money that we could be spending more on the like experience for everybody.
Yeah, and it started because everybody had to go virtual.
Mm-hmm.
We just barely missed virtual in 2020 because we had an early conference that year, but then 21 we couldn't put people in a room and it was all virtual. And then because we had so many people sign up to do it that way, we kept it going because we knew that some people couldn't make the trip and that they wanted to come online. But those numbers actually have dropped every year too a little bit. And I think it's because we all have Zoom burnout. And 3 days of sessions in Zoom is a lot. We do hear good things from the people who do it, and they seem to like it.
Yeah,
It is expensive to offer that aspect, so we're going to need to think through whether that makes sense or not. It's possible if we're doing a lot of webinars and online things during the year, maybe the conference is only an in-person thing.
Yeah, and I think, and also another reason to like kind of get a committee together, kind of brainstorm and think about those things. So I think there's ideas there for sure, so everyone can feel included, but it isn't such a heavy lift on our end when the conference is happening. And then also thinking about partnerships with nonprofits to get grant funds and scholarships and staffing. I was asked several times, like, if we are all volunteers at the conference, and I'm like,
volunteers.
No, like this is our job, and we need to get paid, and we should get paid, and we're putting on a good conference, and so, but could we bring in nonprofits that have, funding available so that we can offer things for folks that want to attend?
An FMPP grant for the conference would make complete sense.
It would make such sense. We're just like grant averse, personally.
And we're not grant people.
Yeah.
We partnered with one of our nonprofit folks that we work with anyway on a lot of things. I mean, that's something we're probably going to explore.
Yeah.
And if we did that, I think you could fund things like scholarships. So, I mean, I would love to see some people that would really benefit from the conference, but just are too early in their careers generally, or are working in a very small rural kind of market. Get some help with the registration fees, but also the travel and the accommodation. So like full ride scholarships would be cool. We could get some more paid staff. And maybe lunches. And I say maybe lunches and with a little bit of a laugh because we oftentimes on comment cards, not a lot of people, but there's always some people that say, well, you should include lunches. And not understanding that when you're holding an event in a hotel, Lunch is like $45, even if it's a sandwich and a coleslaw, is what it
Yeah.
costs us to give you that lunch. We do the market lunch on the Monday, which is awesome, but talking a hotel into letting you do that is rough. And shout out to the Catamaran that they do let us do it on one day of the conference, which is cool. And and the reason, and I think people say, oh, well, that should just be included in the registration. But I think these are probably people that don't go to a lot of conferences. Or if they do, they're going to like small farm conferences, which are often grant funded
Hmm.
and are often offered by some state association where the registration fee is very, very low. I have seen some state conferences lately, Washington Farmers Market Conference, a couple others, I think maybe Maine, where they're charging conference rates that are more comparable to what most conferences charge. So our registration rate has has gradually gone up to 445, which is still nothing when I look at going to the Shared Kitchen Summit, for instance. They
Yeah.
do a beautiful conference, but it's a $900 registration fee. Project for Public Spaces registration fee is usually, six something. And they're not including meals either. A
Yeah.
lot of times, they're including some breakfast like we do, and maybe they've got receptions, but it doesn't mean three meals. So I don't think people understand it doesn't sound like it would be much to provide lunch for 300 people, but it is in the environments that you're working in. So it would require grant funding to do that.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And if you're attending conferences or gatherings where lunch is provided, there's probably some kind of funding behind that if you're not paying a lot. And maybe just people aren't thinking about that because they're not conference operators,
Right,
they're market
right.
operators. So, yeah. So we try to do the best we can. But again, and also as market people, like I don't want a hotel sandwich. I don't want to eat that. So I don't need that to be provided for me because it's gonna get wasted. So I think that's kind of the thought that we were having. But maybe provide if we got grant funding, we could provide the option, could pre-order, things like that. So there are those ideas
Put
for
some tables
folks.
on the beach and get a caterer to bring in boxes.
Yeah. I mean, if
But
it's
again, if we
good,
had more staff and
yeah.
I could do
And
that.
I think in our old location, we got a lot more of those comments because we were so in the middle of nowhere out there. There was no other like food options. But I think recently, since we've been close to the Catamaran, there's grocery stores down the street. There's little shops and things like that, so people can grab kind of like a quicker, easier meal. The hotel does provide a few spots to
Yeah.
eat too, so that was a little bit easier. But yeah, if we had the funding, then we could kind of offer something to folks that need food included. So that's a thought that
Yeah.
we have. Yeah.
Yeah, and actually most of the people this year, and I think you're right, it's because we're in a place where it is you can go get lunch.
Yeah.
We're saying I would just like to have lunch provided so that I could just stay there and talk to people and
Yeah.
not have to go stand in line at a taco shop or what have you.
I mean, that is actually a plus too, because yeah, having to leave to go get food was kind of a like one of the days I didn't eat lunch because I was just like doing a bunch of stuff at lunchtime, and then I was like, oh, whoops, like I didn't eat anything.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's something to consider. But this is all great feedback, and which is why we want people to fill out the comment cards. We want people to do the survey so that we know about the attendee experience and how we can just make this better and better every year. Because that's what we do. We take those comments very seriously. We've changed a lot of things about the conference, a lot of structure things, timing things, how it operates because of feedback that we've gotten.
Yeah, based very specifically on suggestions and requests in the comment cards. We can't always do it. Sometimes it's just not practical given the restrictions of the venue and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But we've had a lot of great ideas that we've taken directly into the next version of the conference each year.
Exactly. Yep. So we appreciate that.
Yep.
Like I always say, just say it nicely. And it is now nice. I don't know. Yeah. We had a really great group this year.
We did.
Also, I just feel like everyone had a great time. I got to talk to I don't know about everybody, but so many of the attendees. My favorite part of the conference is being like hostess with the mostest and just like chatting with folks and getting to know new people and helping them feel really welcome and getting them to the right spot and getting them what they need. That's what I love about the conference, just because I'm just how I am naturally. But this year I felt like I really did get to like do a lot of that, where some years I'm just running around constantly and I talk to hardly anybody at all, or I only talk to people that I already know because I'm like, help me with this, and so but yeah, this year was great and it just felt like such a good group. Everyone really vibed, and I think I saw a lot of like new friendships form and people were really welcoming to new folks, so it was a good time.
It was.
Yeah. The weather was very helpful. And the fact that people were coming from like 10 feet of snow and then coming to San Diego, and it was gorgeous.
Yes, it was good.
Yeah.
It was a hard winter in other places, and it was a beautiful winter in San Diego.
And I even had a bum foot the whole time. Still had a great time.
Yeah, we had a lot going on.
Oh my God.
It's just a lot of random outside things.
Oh my gosh.
It was fine.
Couldn't wear a shoe, but it was fine.
It was fine. It was fine. Actually, it was lovely.
Yes, it was a great time.
Yeah. So we're looking forward to the next evolution.
I enjoyed it. Yep. So we sometimes wonder how it can be such a big lift to organize an annual conference when we produce large farmers markets every week with more vendors than speakers and many times more shoppers than conference attendees. And maybe it's because we are still managing markets even as we're evaluating proposals, organizing meeting rooms, creating audio-visual schedules, proofreading name badges, and helping with travel plans. What we don't have to wonder about at all is how valuable it is to see people from our national market community in real life when we gather. Nothing beats being in big rooms or on sandy beaches with people who understand exactly the specific way that our job is weird. We cannot wait for next time.
Are you a member of the National Farmers Market Coalition? We support them and they support us. They're a resource partner here. Catch up on their recent past and see what's next in their future at their online annual meeting this Thursday, April 30th. To register, click the Farmers Market Coalition logo on the resource page at farmersmarketpros.com.
Thanks for listening to Tent Talk today. Please leave us a review on your podcast app or wherever you listen to Tent Talk. Let us and others know how you're enjoying the podcast. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode of Tent Talk. Connect with fellow farmers market folks in our private Facebook group, the Farmers Market Pros Community, and follow us on Instagram at Farmers Market Pros. Find online education and other resources at farmersmarketpros.com. Tent Talk is brought to you by Farmers Market Pros, where passion meets profit. Tent Talk is hosted by Kat Fields White and Bridget Myers and produced by Leandra Hayes, with original music by David Mead. Tune in for another great episode.